My name is Adana, and this is not just my story. It's the story of every child who was ignored, overlooked, pushed aside simply because they weren't the family's favorite. I come from a small town called Umuz, a peaceful village, surrounded by hills, goats, and gossip. Everyone knew everyone. You could walk to the market and hear your name floating through the air before you even reached the palm oil seller's stand. In my house, it was always loud. My father, a retired soldier, liked everything in order. He believed in discipline, structure, and silence, especially from women. My mother, on the other hand, was soft-spoken and sweet. But not when it came to my sister Amaka. To her, Amaka was a treasure, a golden egg wrapped in silk. The girl who could do no wrong, me. I was just the other daughter. It wasn't always so obvious. When we were little, Amaka and I used to run through the cassava fields barefoot, chasing dragonflies and plucking mangoes from the neighbor's tree. We would laugh, fall, fight, and laugh again. But somewhere between our 5th and 10th birthdays, things began to change. Amaka was lighter-skinned than me. Prettier, they said. She had dimples when she smiled, and a soft voice that made people lean in. I was darker, quieter, and liked to read. While she learned to dance and pose for attention, I sat in the corner with books from our neighbor, Mama Chinny, who used to be a teacher before arthritis took her legs. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my father would say whenever I tried to speak up. "She's always frowning." My aunties whispered during family gatherings, as if I wasn't there. I learned to stay silent. I learned that my words weren't valuable unless they praised someone else. When Amaka turned 12, they threw her a birthday party that had the whole village talking. A white dress, a cake from the city, even a hired DJ. When I turned 12 the next year, I got a boiled egg and a Bible verse. But I didn't complain. I swept the compound, fetched water from the stream, helped Mama cook, and even polished Amaka's school shoes every morning. She never said thank you. Not once. One day, in class, our teacher asked us what we wanted to be when we grew up. I said, "A doctor." Amaka said, "A model." Guess who got clapped for? Guess who had her answer? Repeated in church on Sunday as an example of beauty and ambition. I started staying longer at Mama Chinna's. She had a rusted bookshelf with torn storybooks, some missing covers, others with pages held together by thread and prayer. But in those pages, I traveled. I dreamed. I imagined a world where I was not invisible. By the time I reached SS1, I already knew my future wouldn't be in that village. I saved every coin I earned from helping neighbors, washing clothes, braiding hair, running errands. My escape plan was simple. I'd move to the city after WAEC and start a new life. No one noticed I was planning anything. Not even Amaka. On the day of my final exams, my father didn't wish me luck. He was busy helping Amaka with her Instagram pictures. She'd just won some online beauty contest, and the house was buzzing with excitement. Mama even cooked jollof rice that day. For her, me. I walked myself to the school gate and promised myself that it would be the last time I ever felt invisible. The results came out, and I passed with flying colors. Distinctions in biology, chemistry, and English. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would notice. But all I got was a passing well done from Mama while she was cutting okra. That night, sat in my room, our shared room, and whispered to the walls, "I'm leaving." For real this time, I packed my bag at dawn. I didn't cry. I didn't leave a note. I just walked away. My legs shook as I boarded the rusty yellow bus heading to Enugu. I had one small bag, some savings in my bra, and a heart full of fear. And hope. The city hit me like Harmattan wind, sharp, dry, and confusing. The noise, the smells, the way people pushed you without apology. But for the first time, I was alone and free. I rented a small room in a slum near Ogbit Market. It was barely big enough to stretch my arms. The walls had holes. The window had no net. Mosquitoes feasted on my legs nightly. But it was mine. Mine alone. I started working as a cleaner in a tailoring shop. Madame Ifama, the owner, was tough and loud, but fair. She noticed how quickly I learned the names of fabrics, how I handled needles, how I mended torn seams faster than her apprentices. "You have small magic in your fingers," she said one day, handing me a sewing machine of my own. That moment felt bigger than any birthday cake, any praise, any family hug. Within 2 years, I had moved to a better room, bought my own machine, started my own tailoring business. I made uniforms for private schools, sold Ankara dresses online, and even shipped to Lagos. But you know what I still did? I sent money home. Every month, I told myself, maybe now they'll see me. Maybe now they'll say, we were wrong. Mama used to call once a month. It was never to ask how I was. It was always, your sister needs money for this, or the house needs painting, or Papa's sick. Send something. And I did. Even when I didn't have much, I sent something. I still wanted to be seen. I still wanted to belong. Then one day, I got a call from my cousin Chuka Adana. "You won't believe it," he said. "Amaka just bought a new car. She said you paid for it." "What?" I asked, confused. "She told everyone you gifted her money to buy the car. But I know you've been struggling to save for your shop's expansion." I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. I hadn't given her anything close to that. But in the village, the story was already spreading. Donna, the rich sister, spoiling the favorite child. I called Mama. "Mama, is it true?" Amaka said. "I bought her a car." Her reply, "Hey, what does it matter? You're her sister, are you not? Is it bad to support her? At least she's doing well now, thanks to you." That was the last straw. I stopped sending money, I stopped calling, and for the first time in my life, I chose me. But what happened next? What they did to me? That I was not prepared for. They came after me. With lies, with accusations, with a lawsuit. But let me pause here, because that storm deserves its own chapter. And trust me, it only gets worse before it gets better. Life in the city had never been easy. But at least it was honest. After that call with Mama, the one where she practically excused Amaka's lie about the care I didn't eat for 2 days. Not because I didn't have food, but because something inside me had snapped. All the sacrifices I made, the sleepless nights, and this is how they treated me. I had built a life of my own in Anuga, small but solid. I had regular clients, especially school teachers and church women who loved my Ankara designs. I worked from sunup to sundown, sewing by hand when NEPA took light, borrowing generator hours from my neighbor, Uncle Martin's, just to meet deadlines. But something had changed in me. I stopped waiting for calls from home. I stopped checking for family updates. I poured everything I had into my work. A month passed, then 2. I was finally able to save enough to move into a proper 2-room apartment with a tiled floor and an actual ceiling fan. It wasn't luxury, but to me, it felt like a palace. I even started offering free training on Sundays. 2 young girls in the area who couldn't afford tailoring school. It wasn't much, just 5 girls, 1 machine, and a prayer, but it gave me joy. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Then, out of nowhere, Mama called. Adana, her voice was too sweet, too soft. "Your sister wants to start a beauty salon. You know she has always had the talent. She just needs some small help from you, only 500,000 naira." I held the phone in silence. "Did you hear me?" she asked. "I heard you, Mama. So what will you do?" "She says she's found a good location, already very nice place, near the express." "I won't help her." The line went quiet. I could feel the weight of her disappointment crawling through the speaker. You won't help your own blood? After all we did for you. What exactly did you do for me, Mama? She hissed. So now you think you're better than us, eh? Because you live in the city and wear makeup? Don't forget where you come from. I haven't, Mama, but I'm finally remembering who I am. I ended the call. That night, I expected peace to come rushing in like a tide. Instead, what came was silence. Heavy, loud. I lay awake and stared at the ceiling for hours. The next morning, I got a message from a mic. It was just one line. You'll regret this. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel fear. I felt freedom. Weeks passed. My business grew. People started recommending me on Facebook and Instagram. One of my gowns was even featured in a small fashion blog. I was slowly becoming known not just as a tailor, but as a woman of quality. Then, something strange happened. A man walked into my shop one Tuesday afternoon. He was wearing a dusty brown suit, glasses sliding off his nose. "You are Adana Okafor?" he asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. He handed me a brown envelope. "You've been served." I stared at the paper like it was written in another language. My head spun. I sat down. It was a lawsuit, filed by my father. The claim that I had illegally taken possession of family inheritance, specifically land that supposedly belonged to Amaka. I laughed out loud. Land? What land? They were referring to a plot in the village that no one cared about 10 years ago. The same land I had invested in, cleared, fenced, and planned to use for my vocational center. Now they were saying I had manipulated my father into signing it over to me when he was mentally unfit. The betrayal hit me like a brick. It wasn't just Amaka now. It was all of them. I went numb for days, but I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I called a lawyer. I met her through one of my students. Her name was Ifyinanya. She was sharp, fiery, and didn't smile much. After reading the papers, she looked at me and said, "They're trying to intimidate you. This isn't about land, it's about power." I nodded. I already knew that. We filed a counterclaim and prepared for court. Meanwhile, the gossip in the village had spread like wildfire. Adana is dragging her own father to court. Ungrateful city girl. She thinks money makes her better than us. I didn't bother to defend myself. The people who mattered knew the truth. One of those people was Mama Chini, my old teacher. She called me from the village one night, her voice tired but warm. "Adana, I am proud of you. You've always had strength. Don't let them take that from you." "Thank you, Mama," I said, blinking back tears. She paused, then added, "They never saw you. But that doesn't mean you were invisible." Those words carried me through the storm. Court day came. I walked into the magistrate's courtroom in a simple Ankara gown I made myself. No makeup, no jewelry, just me. My father didn't even look at me. My mother pretended to cry. Amaka smirked, like she'd already won. Their lawyer tried to make me sound like a thief, an opportunist, an outsider who stole from her own blood. But we had documents, witnesses, photographs, receipts, and, most importantly, truth. My lawyer tore through their arguments like lightning through dry grass. When she was done, even the judge looked tired. "Of the drama, we will resume for final ruling in 2 weeks," he announced. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than air. Later that night, Amaka sent me another message. "Enjoy your fake victory. You'll always be jealous of me." I didn't reply. What was there to be jealous of? A lie? An illusion? I was building something real, something lasting, and no lawsuit, no family drama, no amount of betrayal could take that from me. But I wasn't prepared for what would happen next, because when the truth finally came out publicly, wasn't just the land that was exposed. It was every single secret my family had tried to bury. And when secrets rise from the shadows, they don't return quietly. When you grow up always being second best, you get used to disappointment. You learn not to expect too much, but betrayal. Betrayal feels like poison. It burns slow, it spreads, and it changes you. After the court hearing, I thought things would settle. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. The village that once ignored me suddenly couldn't stop talking about me. Half of them believed I was ungrateful fighting my own family over land. The other half called me brave, but none of them knew what was about to come. 2 days after the hearing, I got a call from an unknown number. It was a woman. Her voice was trembling. "Is this Adana?" "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Igioma. I used to work for your family as a house help." The name didn't ring a bell at first. Then it clicked. She was the quiet girl who used to sweep our compound and wash Amaka's clothes. I hadn't seen her in over 10 years. "I have something you need to know," she said. "They're planning to forge documents. Amaka bribed one of the local elders to fake a witness statement. She wants to win the case at all costs." Stomach sank. "How do you know this?" She told me herself. "I was working at her salon until last week. She said she'd ruin you, no matter what it took." Igioma agreed to testify. She had proof, voice recordings, text messages. She didn't want money, just justice. And just like that, everything changed. My lawyer, Ifunanya, moved fast. She added the new evidence to our case. We filed a petition for defamation and attempted fraud. Amaka's smile at the last hearing turned into a scowl when she saw us walk into court with Igioma. But this story isn't about courtrooms and papers. It's about what people are willing to do when they believe they own you, and what you do when you realize they never did. I remember sitting alone one evening, sewing in silence, when my neighbor's daughter Zina came to see me. She was one of the girls I trained on weekends. She was shaking. "Auntie Adana, someone from your family came here. They were asking people to sign something. They said you're trying to steal community land." I sighed. They were desperate, twisting the story, telling anyone who would listen that I was a thief. A city witch, a woman who forgot her roots. But this time, I didn't hide. I walked into the community meeting the following week, head held. I greeted the elders with respect. I handed out copies of the real documents. I stood beside Igioma as she told them exactly what she had witnessed. The room was so quiet you could hear mosquitoes hum. I ended by saying, "I never came to take anything. I came to build something for young girls like me, who grow up in the shadow of their siblings, who are told they are not enough. I am not here to fite. I'm here to rise, and no one will stop me." I left without waiting for applause, but word spread. This time, not as gossip but as truth. The village started to shift. Slowly, some of the same women who used to praise Amaka now whispered that her pride had blinded her. Some men said my father had lost his way, allowing bitterness to ruin his judgment. But the worst part, the part that still hurts, was Mama. She sent me a voice note the night before the final ruling. Her voice was filled with pain, but not the kind that comes from regret. It was bitterness. "You think this victory will bring you peace? You destroyed your own sister. You embarrassed us. You chose shame over silence. Don't bother coming back." I stared at my phone for hours. I could have deleted the message. I could have cried, but I didn't, because for the first time, I finally understood. I had never betrayed them. They betrayed me. They betrayed me when they ignored my wins and celebrated my sister's every move. They betrayed me when they used me like an ATM, only calling when they needed something. They betrayed me when they lied in court just to protect the illusion of a perfect family. And still, I never stopped loving them. That's The hardest part: loving people who don't love you the way you deserve. The next morning, I woke up early. I dressed in a cream-colored dress I made the night before. Simple, elegant, strong, in court. The judge's voice echoed through the room like thunder. After reviewing the documents, the testimonies, and the submitted evidence, this court finds the defendant, Miss Adana Okafor, not guilty of any wrongdoing. The land ownership is valid and legal. There was silence. Then murmurs. Amaka stood up and stormed out. My mother didn't look at me. My father turned his back. But I smiled, not because I had won a case, but because I had won my freedom. After the hearing, I stood outside the court under the morning sun. Ijeoma hugged me. Oh. My lawyer nodded, victorious but calm. "You did it?" she said. "No," I replied. We did it. That afternoon, I returned to my shop. The girls were waiting, balloons in hand. They had bought malt and chin-chin with their own money. "Auntie Adana, you're our hero," they shouted. I laughed until I cried. Not because I was happy, but because I finally felt seen, not by the people I had chased for years, but by those who truly saw me. I still get messages from Amaka sometimes, some filled with spite, others pretending to be civil, but I don't reply. I don't need to, because the real betrayal wasn't in what they did. It was in what I allowed for too long. I allowed them to define my worth, to use my silence as permission, to use my love as leverage. Not anymore. I was no longer the forgotten daughter. I was the woman who turned betrayal into purpose. But the story wasn't over, because when people see you rise, they either clap for you or they try to bring you down again. And in my case, they weren't done yet. After the court ruling, I thought the story had finally ended. I thought the judgment, the shame, and the exposure would be enough to make them stop. But I underestimated how far pride can drive a person, especially when that pride is bruised. My family didn't take the loss quietly, in fact. They doubled down. Rumors began to float darker, more wicked than before. She used charms to win the case. She's joined a cult in the city. She's no longer one of us. The funny thing about lies is, if people want to believe them, you don't need proof, just whispers. Just one angry person to repeat it loud enough for others to nod. I'd walk to the market and feel eyes on me. Women who once greeted me turned their faces away. The church where I once donated fabric for choir uniforms refused to acknowledge me during service, but I didn't flinch, because I knew something they didn't know. The truth was about to surface, and it would shake everything. It started when I received a handwritten letter sent through a courier. There was no sender name, but the handwriting looked familiar. The paper smelled like camphor and palm kernel oil. Inside was one line: "I think it's time you know who Amaka really is." Attached to it was a small flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop, heart racing. There were 6 video clips, all shot secretly. Some looked like they were taken with a hidden phone camera. Others from security footage. One video showed Amaka at a police station bribing an officer to lose a complaint made by one of her salon's ex-staff. Another showed her insulting Mama Chin, calling her a useless old woman who raised a disgrace. But the last clip was the one that shattered everything. Amaka was in a room with a man, my father's friend, Uncle Dominic. They were discussing money and land, and how they would trick my father into signing over documents that didn't even belong to him. I watched that video 3 times. My hands were shaking, my mouth dry. Everything I had suspected was true and more. My own sister had forged, bribed, and manipulated not just me, but my father too. And yet, they had all tried to pin it on me. I sent the videos to Ifananya, my lawyer. She didn't hesitate. "We're filing for a full investigation," she said. "But first, we're going to let the people see what they've been defending." We released a snippet online, just 1 minute. It was enough. The video went viral across our state in less than 48 hours. It wasn't about dragging a maca or shaming my family. I didn't add my name or face. But the people knew. Everyone knew, because the truth, real, unfiltered truth speaks louder than any lie. Suddenly, the same villagers who had turned their backs started reaching out. Messages came in, "Adana, we're sorry. We didn't know. You've always been the good one. Forgive us." Even the local priest visited my shop and said, "Daughter, if I had listened better, I would have stood with you earlier." It was almost surreal, but I didn't let it get to my head. I wasn't looking for validation anymore. I just wanted peace, Mama. However, didn't take it well. She sent a message through one of her friends, asking to meet me in private. I agreed. We met at a quiet restaurant near my shop. She looked older. Her eyes had sunk, and her wrapper was loosely tied. She didn't touch the glass of water in front of her. "I didn't know about the video," she said quietly. I stayed silent. I didn't know how far Amaka had gone. I just wanted to protect her still. I didn't speak. Everything I did, maybe I was wrong. Maybe. She finally looked at me. Really looked. "I was afraid you'd leave us, that you'd forget us." So when Amaka shined, I clung to her. I nodded slowly, but in clinging to her, "You let go of me." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't offer a tissue. I had cried alone for years. She could sit in hers for 5 minutes. She stood to leave, pausing by my chair. "I hope one day you'll forgive me." I didn't promise. Forgiveness isn't a door you walk through once. It's a long road, and I was still walking. The final blow came a week later. Amaka was arrested. Not because of me, but because another girl had come forward. A teenage apprentice. She'd been physically assaulted at the salon. And this time, the evidence was overwhelming. The day Amaka was taken in, my father fainted. He was rushed to the health center, and word reached me that night. I didn't go. I sent money for treatment, yes, but I didn't show up because this time, my absence was louder than any presence. People asked, how could she abandon her father? They didn't understand. He abandoned me first. He abandoned me when he called me selfish for not funding Amaka's lifestyle. He abandoned me when he told people I was not his real daughter after I won the case. And I was done chasing love that came with conditions. But in all this pain, something beautiful was being born. The land I fought so hard for. I turned it into a vocational school. The Adana Foundation for girls who were never chosen. We started small, just 6 sewing machines to volunteer teachers, and 1 chalkboard under a tin roof. But word spread, girls came. Girls who had dropped out of school. Girls who had been told they were not good enough. Girls who had been forced to raise younger siblings while their brothers went to school. And I poured everything into them. Not just skills, but confidence, dignity. Fire. One day during a training session, I looked around the room. Laughter filled the air. Fabrics fluttered in the wind. Feet tapped to background music. Hands moved confidently over machines. I stood by the door, and for the first time, I realized this was my family now. One I chose, one that chose me back. The truth had come out. It had torn the old world down. But from the rubble, I was building something better, not for revenge, but for rebirth. And just when I thought peace had finally arrived, a knock came at my door one evening. It was Amaka, wearing a faded t-shirt, no makeup, and swollen eyes. "I have nowhere to go," whispered. I stared at her for a long moment, then slowly opened the door. I didn't speak for a while. Amaka stood in my doorway, hands clenched, eyes swollen from what looked like days of crying. She looked small, not physically, but emotionally. All the arrogance, the glamour, the pride gone. "Please," she said softly, "I have nowhere to go." A part of me wanted to close the door. The old me who cried behind closed doors while she was praised. The me who sent money she didn't have to people who never said thank you. The me who stood in court alone. But another part of me, the woman, I'd become the woman who had found strength, purpose, stood still and opened the door wider. She stepped in. No words. No explanations. Just silence and the ticking of the old clock on my wall. I made her tea. She sat on the edge of the couch like she didn't belong in her own skin. Finally, she spoke. "I messed up. That was all. I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to make it easier." She continued, "They left me, too. After the arrest, after the salon closed, Mama said I embarrassed the family. Papa won't speak to me. No one in the village lets me enter their shop anymore." The irony? For years, they cheered her every movie, her worst ones. And now, silence. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. But I had to try. I sipped my tea and looked her in the eye. "Why now?" I asked. "Because I finally saw the truth," she said, eyes glistening. "You were never the enemy. I was, and there it was. The admission I never expected, never demanded, but somehow always needed. Still, forgiveness is not a prize someone earns just by apologizing. It's a journey, and we were only at the starting point." I let her stay that night. On the couch, the next morning, she quietly helped wash the dishes and swept the front yard. No complaints, no makeup. Just quiet. Weeks passed, she didn't leave. She began to help out at the foundation teaching basic grooming and business etiquette to the girls. At first, they were skeptical. But Amaka, surprisingly, worked hard. Humbly and slowly, things began to shift. One day during lunch break, one of the girls whispered to me, "Auntie, your sister is funny. Oh, and she even helped fix my hair." I nodded, but said nothing. One evening, after everyone had gone, I walked into the hall to find Amaka, sitting in front of the mirror, holding a photo of us as kids. She looked up, her face raw. "Do you remember this?" she asked. I did. We were maybe 6 and 7. Both of us barefoot, faces stained with mango juice, laughing. I sat beside her. "I was jealous of you," she said. "Even when they treated you badly. I could see you were stronger. I hated it. I stayed quiet. I thought if I could just shine brighter, they'd love me more." The sentence hit deep. Because in our different ways, we were both chasing the same thing. Love. But while I chased it through silence, she chased it through noise. "I don't deserve your kindness," she whispered. "No," I said. But neither of us deserved the pain we got. For the first time in my life, I saw her not as the golden child, not as the sister who had everything handed to her, but as a human being, flawed, hurt, lost. We sat like that for a long time. No more words, just a quiet kind of healing. Months passed, my foundation grew. We got donations. A foreign NGO noticed our work and offered support machines, books, even a grant for building expansion. I started traveling to speak at events, telling my story not as a victim, but as a survivor. Everywhere I went, people listened, not because I was famous, but because I was real, raw, honest. I no longer told it with bitterness. I told it with strength, with purpose. Back home, something unexpected happened. My father showed up. He came on a Sunday afternoon, dressed in his old army jacket, his face sunken but proud. "I came to see your school," he said, not meeting my eyes. I nodded and led him through the compound. He watched. The girls sewing, laughing, asking questions. "This is yours?" he asked finally. "Yes." He sighed, then said, "I failed you. I waited. I didn't protect you. I let my pride blind me. I believed the wrong people. Your sister, your mother, even myself." He paused, his voice shaking. "Forgive me." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't theatrical. But it was real. I didn't rush to hug him. I didn't cry. But I nodded, and that was enough. Mama didn't come. Not that month. Not even the next. But eventually, she did. Quietly, she brought me a bag of yam and groundnuts. "Old habits? I heard you were going to Lagos for a conference," she said, eyes avoiding mine. "Yes." She looked around. "This place is beautiful." I thanked her. She stood awkwardly for a while, then finally said, "If you ever have time, maybe you can come home, just for one weekend." I didn't promise. I didn't need to. Some wounds take years to heal. Others maybe never. But for once, the door was open on both sides. Not forced. Not begged for. Just open. Years later, when I sat down to write my story for a women's magazine, they asked me the final question. If you could go back in time and change anything, would you? I smiled and wrote, no, because pain taught me power. Silence taught me voice. And betrayal gave me boundaries. That's the thing about stories like mine. They don't end with revenge or pity. They end with clarity, with rising, with rebirth, and most importantly, they end with choice. I chose to become more than what they called me. I chose to stop begging to be chosen. I chose to build something for the forgotten daughters. And in doing so, I finally chose myself. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you watched till the end, please comment "end" so we know you were with us the whole time. Also, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to know our audience better. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and share this video with your friends and family. See you in the next one. Until then, stay happy and take care. Goodbye.